the self-destructive power of your mind, or when your mind turns against you. You might be saying, what are you talking about? So you want to tell me that when I try to exploit my mind at its max, when I try to think the best, at the best of my abilities, can be that my brain plays some tricks with me, and that my brain actually can not look for my best, can not look for my interest, and that my brain is lying or wants to destroy my life? The answer is yes. Sometimes it can be so. The fact is that we are only aware of this phenomenon only when we reach the bottom, when things get tall, and then we are so confused. When we look at the results of our labor, when we look at the reality that we have, which is very different from our expectation. We had a vision, we have an idea, we started to work, you started to build your business, you started to implement a change in your life. And instead of getting the results that you're looking for, you get something different. And you ask yourself, how is that possible? I've done my best. I've done everything I could. And sometimes I also hear very often, I've done the same thing which somebody else did, and I didn't get the same results. How is that possible? Maybe, and there are two categories. Those who start to blame everything around. They say the market is wrong, the people are just not the right people, my network is not good, my team is not good, my idea, my business, my project, or something else. There is somebody else's problem every single time. Rather than looking within, they will always find confirmations why everything around is wrong or is not right. And there are others who blame themselves. I'm too old, I'm too young, maybe I don't have what it takes, maybe I'm not enough, maybe I'm not so smart enough, maybe just it's not something, I'm not meant to become who I want to become. I'm not meant to have what I want to have. Now, when you reach to these two states, along the way, somewhere, your mind started to play some tricks with you and you were not aware of. And it's very hard. We all fall for this trap because most of us have the idea that the more I think, the better I think, the best decisions I will make. And the best decisions I do make, the better results I will get. Therefore, if I'm always thinking, that is going to bring me everything I want, need, and deserve in my life. Because the power of the mind is all I've got. So I can think and get things done, where I can make things happen in my life. It's partially true. And right in this moment when I just say that it's partially true, you might be thinking, well, who are you? I don't know you and I don't trust you, and rightly so. You don't have to believe and trust. Therefore, I have a condition while you're watching this masterclass. I want that you have this condition, this question in your pocket, and it sounds like this. What does this means to me? Why is that so important? Because just understanding the information that I'm going to share with you, it's not going to be enough. It is going to be in your head. You're going to understand it, but that's not enough. Therefore, if you ask yourself as often as possible, what does this mean to me? Then you're going to connect your inner self with your mind and see what choices I would make differently if these were to be true. What would I choose to believe differently than what I do believe and I'm convinced now if these would be a tool that I might start to use from today on? So you want to have this reflection, this mirror with you. So while I'm sharing this information with you, you might connect it within so that your mind can stop from playing some tricks also during this masterclass. But you're going to do your own reflection and you're going to make your decisions about which tool maybe is the exact tool that you really need right now, and which of the things probably it's not the time because it's too early, or it is too aggressive, or is too light, or maybe you have already passed through. Now, this masterclass is going to be split in 3 parts. I'm going to share with you a principle, a rule, and a concept. The principle is not so complicated. The rule is simple, but it's painful sometimes to apply it because it goes against our preferences. So it requires some work. And the concept is the most complicated part of this masterclass. So therefore, my invitation for you is to grab a piece of paper and a pen, and you maybe want to take some notes upon which you're going to reflect later. Because all the information that I'm going to share with you is going to go through your mind, but it's not for the mind. It's something that might reveal some tricks of your mind. So therefore, your mind that stays between me and you might say, well, wait a second, let me filter this information because this might require some additional work after I let it to pass through, and I don't want to work. Your mind doesn't want to work. Your mind wants to be at rest, wants to be in balance, and doesn't want to do any work. And that's part of the concept that we'll learn at the end of this masterclass. Now, what is the first principle that you want to understand and try it for yourself so that you can start realizing how your mind can lie to you? Now, to you, to whom? Who is this you? Your mind can tell a lie to you. Who is this you? In our self-discovery program, that's your self. That's your soul. That's your inner part. But if you're not familiar with this concept, then hop along and you'll get more understanding about this relationship. How do you process? How do you manage your mind? Wow. Because the first principle of this masterclass is the invisible runs the visible. What is boiling in the bowl of your mind, that's what you're going to be served on the table of life. The invisible runs the visible. Everything that you have in your life. So let's write it down. And you maybe want to write it too. The invisible runs the visible. How is that possible? Because you might be thinking about the problems that you have, about the situations that you are going through in your life, that this is what is visible. And the fact that I do have this problem or another, it's not because I made the conscious choice to have these problems. It's because of the vision that I do have, or it's because of the mission that I'm on, or because I'm on this path of self-discovery, of self-understanding. Therefore, the issue which is in front of me, which I do see and think about, it's not a creation of my fantasy. I don't want these problems. I don't want to have these difficulties, but I do have them. And it's not because I want them, but because they are there. And sometimes that's true, sometimes that's not. Now, how is that possible? Look, when you have your mind thinking about something, I want to ask you, who gave the order to your mind to think about whatever you're thinking about? Where was that moment when something came into your mind that ignited this process of thinking? For example, let's suppose that you never had a motorbike. And you go with your friend and you enter into a motorbike store and you see a beautiful motorbike and you say, wow, I want it. But wait a second. Who told to your mind that you want it? Something that is correlated to the feeling of imagining being on a motorbike. So a feeling, an idea, which is not a reasonable idea, but an idea from within, a desire for a sensation or for a feeling, very similar to other sensations that you've had in your life. You might not even be aware of the fact that maybe in the past you were on a boat and you're moving on a high speed and you liked the breeze of the wind in your face, and that you felt the freedom and you felt the beautiful smell of the sea. the sun that was lighting your face and your eyes, and you felt so good. And your subconscious mind, we'll get to the subconscious, memorized that feeling. And when you saw a motorbike, you also know from all the hundreds of times that you've seen people on a motorbike that it's windy, that they go very fast. So that might be produce a very similar feeling that I already know. So even if you never run a motorbike, even if you never had a motorbike, a feeling from within ignited the process of thinking that I might want to have this motorbike. So we can already deduce the fact that from your subconscious mind, where a conviction about how the wind feels, or what freedom is, or what fun is, or maybe you thought about riding that motorbike with your friend, or maybe you already imagine yourself on a trip, or maybe you like the colors, or maybe you just like the design and you really like beautiful things. And you saw the beauty on that motorbike, and it recalled a memory instantly. You might not even aware of the speed at which this phenomenon happens. And you've seen the beauty of this motorbike, and it connected to the beauty of other things that you've experienced while you were looked at in your life in the previous months or years. So the first source where some order can come towards your mind is your subconscious mind. And you might be saying, okay, so how is this correlated to the fact that the invisible runs the visible? Because after you feel or allow yourself to have this desire of wanting to have a motorbike, you might, so again, you have the question in your pocket, what does this mean to me? So if you don't have the experience of a motorbike, try to think about a different experience, something that you saw and you started to want it. So always try to translate it for you. What could this mean to me? All right, so that you can see how the same process you actually went through, but about different things that you wanted to buy or to have in your life. Now, if that feeling is allowed to come in your mind starts to think about and would ask the seller, hey, how much does it cost? Because your mind already started to think about different scenarios. Do I have enough money to buy it? Can I pay it in rates? Is it comfortable or not? Let me try it. So your mind can start already to look for the solutions because of this feeling. Even if you see the motorbike for the first time. And let's imagine that you ask and the price is good, or it's also very comfortable. You might make the decision to buy it. So this motorbike can become yours. A very simple example how something visible happened because of some invisible feelings or thoughts that goes through your mind. Now, if you have the conviction in your subconscious mind that a motorbike is dangerous, and perhaps you've seen an accident, you start to form this conviction that motorbikes are dangerous. Therefore, when you see a motorbike, your mind says, nope, let's reject this idea because this is going to be dangerous. And you do not engage into the action. You're not going to have that motorbike. Now let's go to another example. If you have an idea about your business, your mind sometimes tells you that whatever you want to achieve is so hard and probably you'll never get it done. You want to ask yourself, where did it come from? Because it probably came from my subconscious mind. Because your mind doesn't know about what business is. You didn't know that when you were born. So your mind cannot think about things that your mind doesn't know. It learned through your whole life and has filled the subconscious mind with convictions, ideas, deductions about how the world works and what a business is, so on and so forth. Now, this is one source where from some orders can come into your thinking mind. Therefore, we have already a confirmation that the invisible runs the visible. What does it mean to you? That means that whatever you are facing now in your life or in your relationship or in your business, the type of the problems that you have, they are not there just came from somewhere or someone offered to you. There were a myriad of choices that led to this situation. And if you allow your mind to solve a problem that seems very difficult, if you only rely on what the mind is, means that you're only relying on what your subconscious mind tells to your mind or what your instinctual system is telling you. So you have the subconscious mind, which is an accumulation of ideas or convictions that you accumulated through life. Now, the instinct is always there within you. So if the subconscious mind is something that we can mold, we can change, we can see through our minds using specific questions, we can find all the beliefs, not really all, but all those beliefs that needs to be changed. If you come, and then is the third source, because we have three sources here. The one is subconscious, then is the other one is instinctual, and the next one is the conscious one. So the conscious is one, which I was going to discuss in a couple of minutes, is let me pose a question. So you consciously stop and you try to look within. What do I believe? What belief might be true, needs to be true in order to think the way I think or to see the reality the way I see it. So the second one is the instinctual. The instinctual one, it's a very always running system in the back of your head, and it's right in the back of your head. It's right where the brainstem is. The brainstem, the limbic system, neural cortex, maybe you heard about it. So the brainstem is that system that always answers to the question, am I safe? Is my life at risk or not? And sometimes you can react and do things upon your instinctual stimuli. If you see a car that's speeding towards you, you might jump, you might pull, you might grab, you can do some things after of which you can become aware afterwards, and you ask yourself, how did it happen? I was so fast, I didn't know I could. So when your life is at risk, then something in your brain can come from your instinctual system. Now, that's not only a car speeding towards you. That also might be, I'm gonna lose everything in the next month. And if I lose everything in the next month, or if I don't have 10 more clients in the next 2 days, I'm broken. I'll be broke and I will fail. And that is a threat to your existential system. So when it comes from your instinct, and if one does not know the relationship between the instinctual system and the mind, our minds can be run by some instinctual stimuli, and we're not even aware of it. For example, the example with the 10 clients. If I don't have the 10 clients in the next 2 days, I'm broke. I'm done. I'm out of business. Sometimes it might ignite some actions that might be very productive and very creative. Not creational, but creative. But if one is not aware of this relationship, then it might come from your instinctual part of yourself, a signal into your mind, and you start to be to have a blurred vision. You might become so scared, and you also might become blocked and frozen, and you go into despair, and you start to think that all of this was a mistake. I shouldn't have done to start this business, or I shouldn't have to engage in this relationship because it's all a mistake. And very often that seems so real in our minds that the situation that's in front of us, it's the last one, is fatal. And your mind tells you, run away from all of these problems, close it, shut it down, you are done. And you're going to be ashamed. Everyone is going to look at you and say, what a joke. So stop all of this. And it is real. Now, I have a question for you. If that is true, isn't your brain in this situation goes against you? Isn't your brain working against you for self-destruction? Because when something in the real part of your life is threatening your existential aspect of you, your brain will say, let's run away from it. Let's shut it down because it's too stressful. But if you might become aware of the distinctual function between your subconscious mind and your instinctual system, you can overcome these problems at ease. So that you, when you come that moment when you ask yourself, when it seems that it's a fatal situation, go back to the 10 clients, or again, use the question that you have in your pocket. What does this mean to me? So think about a problem or about a feeling or about a situation that you've been through or probably are going through right now. So you want to ask yourself, where from comes the ignition, the stimuli to my mind so that I'm busy thinking the way I think? What should be true about a threat for my existence that is pushing my mind to think in a way or another? Or what conviction do I have? What am I so sure about? That one thing works in a way or another. What's right, what's wrong? What me, why others? Why this, why something else? What is the conviction about two things? That this is right and that is wrong. That is good for others. This is not good for me. They are so, but I'm not so. They are much smarter. I'm not so smart. They have many other tools. I don't have all these tools. So of course, without those tools, it's impossible to build an email list if you don't have an email build system. So when you have this conviction that without X, you can never achieve Y, you'll always be busy thinking that the situation or the problem that you have, it is so real and it's so dangerous to your whole life and to your business, without being aware that there is a conviction in your subconscious mind. And when that conviction is alive and it's hidden and you're not aware of it, your brain functions and works upon that belief. And it becomes destructive for whatever you do. Because there is a belief that commands your mind. And it's not your mind's fault, and it's not your fault. It's not the life's fault. It's not the business issue or mistake. Sometimes it is. But sometimes we make a mistake, and if the belief says, if you do a mistake, you're not an expert. If you're not an expert, you'll never get successful. If you make 2 mistakes a day, you'll never be wealthy. Or if you make 3 mistakes a day, probably you're not as wise as you might be thinking that you are. And as long as there is a belief of which we're not aware of, it commands our minds, and we are doomed to start to make dumb decisions or to start to go on a destructive path, running away from our abundance, running away from our gifts, running away from our happiness, running away from our relationships, running away from things which are meant there to be in order to help us to realize, finally realize the principle which most of adults ignore and forget about. And now that you're watching this masterclass, now you know the invisible runs the visible. Everything that you see or you face or you're encountering in your life, it's not because that it is. It's because you somehow have created it through a myriad of decisions or through multiple choices that we make. And if one is not aware of this principle and forgets about this principle, is so focused on the visible and becomes so stressed constantly trying to solve so many problems which don't need to be solved, or at least not now, or at least needs to be approached with a creative thinking. And a creative thinking, how do we get to a creative thinking? How can we not be overwhelmed by the emotions and the feelings? By the way, what's a feeling? A feeling is a byproduct of our psyche that looks for confirmations of an existing belief. That's a feeling. And sometimes when we are about to make something risky, something radical, which might be amazing for our growth, the feeling says, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Why? Why? Because you have the belief that you don't deserve it, or it's something that never been done, which actually it was. If you look in the past and others successful people's lives, you'll see that even bigger things were achieved. So why do you think that you cannot? So there is a belief that says that you miss something where you're not complete, where you're not enough. And as long as that belief is there, you're going to have this feeling every single time when you're about to make a change in your life or to implement a new element in your business. So rather than being overwhelmed by emotions and feelings and to start to approach our lives and our businesses and our problems that we face, which are seemingly more powerful than us, and more powerful than us, what does it mean? When we resist to face a challenge or to go through a problem, when we resist to face a belief that is hidden in our mind, we already admit that it is more powerful than us. A question: when do you close the window of your house? When the wind is slow and nice, or when there is a tornado going out? You close the window because you know that this is more powerful than you. So you close the window, you close the door because that is more powerful than you. So when we resist to something, we already admit that I'm not as powerful enough in order to go through this challenge, or this is much stronger than me. So every single time when you want to change something in your life, do not resist it, but realize the fact that everything that's in front of you, it's already given to you in order to be overcome, and you already have all the tools needed, all the energy and the wisdom you need in order to go through it and see what's the beauty on the other side. Do not resist it, because by resisting it, you give your own power to that challenge or to that belief or to that situation which is right in front of you. Do not resist. Relax, look through, and be creative. Have faith and take action upon the best tools which are already available to you. Now, the third ignition system which can have power on your mind is your conscious thinking. When you stop and you consciously step out, zoom out, and you start to see the bigger picture, and you come with a question for a problem that you have or for your thinking process. You come consciously to the conclusion that probably something in my understanding of what's safe for my life, or something that I'm very convinced about, might not be true. For example, when you read this principle, the invisible runs the visible, you never want to forget it. Because if you forget it, you'll start to lose yourself in the process of trying to solve everything, and in the process of thinking that everything that's in front of you is too hard, too complicated, and you cannot overcome it because it is too much for you. I can't. Why? Because you feel it like a threat. But if you remind yourself that the invisible runs the visible, then you might relax a little bit these two systems. And that doesn't mean to go in meditation every couple of hours just to calm your mind. Because calming your mind is a very dangerous process. Why is that so? Because every single time you want to calm your mind is telling to your mind, dear mind, I know the best thing you can do is to think, but I want you not to think. I want you to become dumber and stupider, and I don't want you to do your job. Rather than assigning specific tasks which are meant for the mind and not assigning to the mind things, solutions, problems, questions that are meant to be for the soul, one starts to confuse these two areas. And rather than spotting the source of the question or of the problem and start to ask yourself, why have I started to think in a way or another? What's the ignition process that started this way of thinking? One simply close the eyes, doesn't want to look within, and starts to tame the mind so that next time when you actually need your mind says, no, you told me to relax. You told me to relax, therefore I'm not gonna think. And one becomes even more confused because the lack of understanding of what is your subconscious mind, what is your instinctual system, what is your soul, and what is your mind. So that one can start to manage the mind and to allow the power of the mind to be unleashed when needs to be, and when your mind needs to be at rest at all. Rather than taking your mind, putting it in the wrong environment, trying to deal with the problems which are not meant for the mind to be solved, and you also want that your mind does not think about them. That's a very clear example of the destructive power of your mind, or how your mind can turn against you. And if you are not aware of this process, you might be thinking that you have a wrong mind, or you're not smart enough, or that you are not enough. And your whole life changed its reality, and you start to think that that is the reality. Whereas actually what you think and the way you manage your mind, that is the reality. And this is going to decide the physical reality. What is boiling in your brain, that's what you're going to be served on the table of life. So let's not blame the mind, but let's consciously come with the right questions that can help us to understand where the stimuli came from. Is it true? Is it not? Or is this a game of my mind that tells me that the reality in which I am, or the problems that I try to solve, are bigger than me, or they're too complicated? So then your mind starts to push you towards some dumb decisions, rash decisions, being impulsive, because your brain says, I want to get out of this situation. So just, let's do this. Boom. And you've done it. And oh my gosh, another impulsive decision. Or your mind might start telling you, you know what? Shut it down. Close the shop. Forget about it. It was all a mistake. And you go in despair, and God forbid you start to be depressed. And all of this because of the lack of the understanding between how your mind works and what's the function of your mind and who gives the order to your mind. So the conscious is to ask, why is it feels threatening to myself or to my business? If you feel so, if you feel that you're in a rush, that you feel stressed and you feel, your adrenaline is so high and you're like scared, like, oh my gosh, what should I have to do? What I have to do? And you're really tempted to make a very, very, very impulsive decision. Ask yourself consciously. So step out and consciously ask yourself, wait a second. Why is it feeling threatening to my existential aspect of who I am? Is it so or not? Or consciously to ask yourself, what needs to be true in order for my mind to believe that what is in front of me, it's unbearable, is too complex, or it's all a mistake? What needs to be true? And sometimes there are some healthy beliefs, and the answer is, it is all a mistake. We have to roll back this tape, go from the moment when we have started to make this chain of bad decisions, and from there, readjust the direction. If you need a mentor or a coach or somebody that's much better in your industry at what you're doing, then you do that. You maybe go for advice, or you just simply reflect and you find that moment where from you have started to go on the wrong path, you started to go south. So this is the conscious, the instinctual system, and the subconscious mind. Therefore, you don't want to forget the principle that the invisible runs the visible. And you forget about it, you will start to create your inner reality according to the whole problems that you have on the outside. And that's not a motorbike, that sometimes it's much even bigger than this. That's just an example. So if this doesn't run the outer reality, then everything which is in the outer reality starts to condition your inner reality. So every event and every problem is going to tell you who you are, rather than knowing who you are and molding and shaping the reality that you need, want, and deserve. If you want to know more about self-discovery and how to know yourself, this is just the surface of a very complex concept of how to start to take control of your thoughts, of your thinking. So you start to be more creative. So you start to take actions which are aligned with your dream while you are also realistic, so that you can make it happen without all this or taking all of these stressful, useless process, destructive process of your mind. So if you want to look in the description below, you can find a link to the self-discovery program, which is going to give you all you need, 12 modules, 150 or 160 pages of questions and tools, and a whole workbook is designed in such a way so that you start from presumably not knowing anything about your inner self. So it will take from the fundamentals and you'll reach to the most complex concepts of how to start to change the reality that you have outside according to the greatness and the power that you have in the inner reality, and how to start to take care of your mind, of your subconscious mind, how to spot and make the difference between all the beliefs which are running your mind, how to take control of your instinctual stimuli so that they don't start to run your subconscious mind, because there are different other ways of how your instincts can start to form beliefs in your subconscious mind. And one might reach a stage in their lives where they start to think that they've just done everything wrong, or they will never achieve the dream that they do have for their lives, because of the lack of these tools, which you can have access right now. If you click on the link below and you get access to the whole program, which is going to help you to clearly see finally the beauty and the greatness, the powers that you already have within. All right, now let's move into the next one, and that is a rule. What is this rule? It's going to be much quicker, and then we're going to jump on the third part. Now, number 2, what is this rule? Not every thought deserves to be analyzed. Ask your thoughts, what's your name? So let's write it down. It sounds funny, but it can change your life. When you start to apply this rule, your whole life can be changed instantly, because you're going to see how many times right now, right in this moment, when a thought appears in your awareness, that you might have a conversation with this thought. So not every thought deserves to be analyzed. The key word deserves, because they are our thoughts. I mean, how can I ignore my thoughts? They are my thoughts. They are real. I want to know my thoughts. And if a thought came to my mind, I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that there are so many individuals which think that if a thought came in my awareness, then it deserves attention and time. How have we formed this conviction? Since when do we have to analyze all of our thoughts? Or but not all of our thoughts, every thought. But in the moment when you are looking for a thought comes into your mind, and because we are sometimes in desperation of finding an answer, we start to engage with this thought. Okay, so yeah, tell me, maybe you're going to give me a solution. But what about the fact that maybe that thought, it's a byproduct of other thoughts? Now you might say, wait a second. So where do the thoughts comes from? Well, that's a very complex question. You already know the first one, the invisible runs the visible. So the three major categories is your subconscious mind, your instinctual system, and your consciousness. So you consciously can create new thoughts. So here's the game. That in the third concept is going to become much clearer, and all of this I'm sharing with you is going to make even more sense because it's going to unify all these ideas together. Let's focus now on the rule that not every thought deserves your attention. For example, a thought might come from a belief that you, when you're about to take a risk, probably you're going to make a mistake. There are others who every single time when they need to take a risk, they like to take risks, and they think that I always win. When I do take a risk, I always win. So they have this belief and they take a risk and they lose everything. And that happens. And that's a lesson if one allows to learn the lesson. It's not about right and wrong for both cases. But if we are not aware of the fact, which is about the name of the thought, what's your name? Where do you come from? Is this thought coming out of my fear? Is this thought coming from my consciousness? Is this thought coming from my imagination? Where is this thought coming from? Because there are thoughts who do not deserve your attention and don't need to be analyzed. So apply this rule to ask, what's your name? I know it sounds funny, but when you go through, try it, and you'll see how it works. Because when you ask a thought and your thought is saying, let's build another product, where do you come from? And then you'll see the answer. Because this product is not selling well. Well, why do we start to build another product? Maybe we have to also check our sales system. Was the offer that I do, was the communication of my offer to the market? Maybe it's my sales team, maybe it's my sales system, maybe it's my lead generation offer that's not generating any leads, and therefore, of course, the conversion is low, and of course, the income is low. What about maybe that you have the perfect product, it just needs to be adjusted somehow, or from an aspect or another, depends on the product that you have. So you see that the way you ask, your brain is going to decide the nature of your thinking. Now, sometimes a wild thought just comes into your awareness, into your mind, and one jumps on that thought and starts to develop it without knowing where is this ship coming from, where this ship comes from, where this ship goes to. And we jump on every train, on every ship, without even asking, hey, to which city are you going? What is the direction? If this thought that comes into my mind, if I ask it, where are you leading? Where are you going? Where do you want to take me? Your brain will answer and it will say, I want to take you on this path because this product or this solution is going to bring you X results. And you ask your brain, how are you sure? And your mind says, I'm not sure. But we have a belief that this works most of the times better than that. So thank you very much, brain, for answering. Means that you have the belief that info products are much easier to make than a physical product. So it's because of that belief. Let's see first if that's true. Let's do our research. Let's see the origins of this thought, and let's see where is this thought taking me. So if this is your thought, where does it come from, and where does this thought wants to take me? Not every thought deserves to be analyzed. So do not be rushed into making decisions or jumping on ships or trains that leads not into the unknown, because that's amazing. When you're into the unknown, you already know that you're on a very radical approach, and that sometimes it's amazing because you are following your inner mission. You are listening to your soul, and the mind cannot even have a glimpse of the idea of the greatness that is awaiting for you in front of you. And sometimes that's great, but is again a risk that one needs to take consciously, so that you can tell to your mind, to your thinking process, listen, I know you don't know where we're going, but I'm gonna listen to you. So then you learn your brain, so that you can learn the tricks or the greatness of your mind. So then you can spot the behavior pattern of your mind, so that next time when a similar thought comes, then you already can have an idea where it comes from, where does it want it to lead me. So that you start to learn yourself, rather than blindly jumping on things and then blaming ourselves, our minds, or the world around. Of course, it's a very personal process. Of course, it's a very, it's up to you to learn your mind. And we're all very different, because it might look very simple, but it is not. But with the right tools, with the right questions, one might start to learn the nature of their thinking, the nature of their thoughts, so that they can start to learn themselves again. And not to allow our brain, our thinking, to trick us and to lie to ourselves, just because we lacked the right question when we approach our thoughts, our thinking process. Therefore, how many of them deserves to be analyzed? Which thoughts needs to be analyzed? That's up to you. And as I mentioned before, in the self-discovery program, you have all the questions that you need in order to reveal the nature, the most often pattern of your thinking. Where does it come from? How to start to clear your subconscious mind, and how to start to form beliefs which are aligned with the purpose and the meaning and the greatness of your soul, allowing your brain to serve this mission, allowing your brain, your thinking process, to facilitate the process of creation, rather than creating stumbling blocks, rather than seeing all the obstacles, which sometimes are not ours. Some obstacles which we create because this wild horse, it's not tamed, it's not learned, and we don't know how to manage it. All of that in the self-discovery program, you can have access right now. Now, let's move to the third part of this program, which is, it's a very complex concept, but I'll try to make my best so that it can make sense to you. And don't forget to ask yourself, what does this means to me? So pick up an example, pick up a thought that you already had in the previous seconds, or you're going to have after this masterclass, so that you can start to ask yourself where this thought came from, and what's the name of this thought? Who are you? Your mind, it's not supposed to be funny or positive. Here is a great misunderstanding about the positive thinking. Let's think positively. How can your mind think positively? Your mind wants to solve problems, wants to save as much energy as possible, wants to find the shortest shortcut, and wants to get out of problems by solving them, forgetting them, overcoming them, or deleting information. Why do you think that your mind deletes information so that it's not bombarded with information? Because your mind doesn't want to work. You want to remember this. Your mind doesn't want to work. But if you create an imbalance between something, so you have a desire or you have a dream, and there is an imbalance between the reality that is in the inner reality and the inner reality or the outer reality. When you have this imbalance, that imbalance is going to be closed with the help of your mind. So your mind sees the gap between what's in, what's out, and says, all right, I'm gonna bring the balance, and then becomes creative and you start to think how you can close this gap. So your brain wants to close gaps, wants to delete information. If the inner reality doesn't match the outer reality for too long time, then your brain says, you know what, like, let's cancel this inner reality. Like, you're not meant for greatness. You don't deserve to be wealthy. You don't deserve to be happy in a relationship. You don't deserve all of that. Forget about it. You know what? Just forget about it. So that your mind can say, so they can stay on a couch, eating chips, watching whatever, or just let's not do anything. Because that's what your mind wants, to not to do anything. And it deletes, cancels, destroys. Your mind, it's not positive at all. Think about it. To have a positive mind means to tell to your mind to be something which it is not. Positive thinking, it's not the way you think. Positive means let's align the best beliefs that I do have with the best scenarios of the outcome that I'm looking for. And I want to stay on at this level here so that my brain can work at that frequency. In other words, dear mind, I'm going to ask you to be as negative and aggressive as you like to be without lowering the level. You don't want to go into this, so then you start to attach some negative beliefs. There might be a negative belief. There might be a negative outcome. So you want to tell your brain, be as aggressive as you like to be, but I want you to stay at this frequency. Because our consciousness, the friendship between your soul and your mind, is elevated. So you don't want to stay in shame and guilt and unworthiness. You want to stay in peace and joy and creativeness and love and oneness. You are already at higher levels. So you tell to your mind, dear mind, do not take me there. I don't want to take me there. So be you, but maintain this height of consciousness. That what might be called as positive thinking. Positive as direction. Positive as a choice of the level of your consciousness. But trying to put a fake smile on your brain is just taking away the power of your brain, at which your brain is extremely good. Now you might say, what the hell all of this means? I want you to invite to see the concept of deductive and reductive, and to look at the other aspects of your mind, such as constructive, negative, positive, creative. These are other aspects. This is not the nature of your thoughts. Those are functions. But before we get to the functions, which is creative or destructive or negative or positive, as a function, not as nature. You have a donkey and you have an ox. An ox is an ox, a donkey is a donkey. A donkey is good for what donkey does, and an ox is good for what ox does. It's a waste of time and energy to force a donkey to be an ox or to force an ox to be a donkey. I don't know where this comes, this example. Whatever there is trying to ask a light bulb to be a bicycle. A bicycle is a bicycle, a light bulb is a light bulb, and that seems very obvious. But it's not so obvious when it comes to the nature of our mind. The nature of our mind, it's not the function of our mind. So we can mold and choose the function, the nature of how your mind thinks. It is what it is, and it has two directions. This is the deductive thinking and reductive thinking as nature. So let's first clear these so that you don't mix them with the function. It needs to be, this difference needs to be made. Otherwise, you might start blaming yourself. You might start blaming your business. You might blaming everything around, or even your brain, your thinking that's not good enough. It's not positive enough. It's not creative enough. It's not supposed to be creative, your brain. Your brain's supposed to find solutions and to find the shortest shortcut and to save energy. Since when you want your brain to be creative? All right. If it doesn't make sense yet to you, it will probably a little bit later. Do not forget about the question that you have with you. What does this mean to me? All right. So deductive and reductive, these are the two. This is so important. So you don't start to have wrong expectations from your mind. So that you start to have a great relationship with your thinking. What is reductive? What is deductive? Deductive is different events, different systems, different observations that you want to get from here to there, and you look at other events, different principles that work here, or parts of other ideas or other concepts or other people, and you start to create conclusions through the deductive thinking. If an X amount of people have done this, if most of the times when I go through these kind of situations, I choose to do this, and because what I want is this and this and that, then I'm gonna take a principle from here, a story from here, a principles from there, and a rule from something that I'm looking for, and you create a deduction from events, people, your past experiences, and you look through and you see the bigger picture, and you start to create something simpler from something which was splitted in many pieces. I read this book. I've seen that man or that woman, they were successful in something very similar to which I am. And also I know my character. I also know my dream. I also know my soul. And I also know my limits in one aspect or another. So what if I take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and it seems creative, but the nature of thinking is deductive. It might be creative. It might be destructive. Through the same deductive process of thinking. Does it make sense to you? You might be deductively thinking, but as function, it might be creative, because you want to take pieces from different sources, from your past, from your future, from others people's, from the books, from information, from your experience, and you put things together because you want to create something. Or you want to solve a problem, you want to cut it in pieces so that you can understand how you can overcome it, and is it worthy of your time and attention. Through the same deductive, you come to some conclusions how to eliminate something of your beliefs, or something of your subconscious mind, or something from the conclusions, the old conclusions that you made in the past. So you want to cut pieces out of it because it was something that served you in the past, but not now. Is this positive or negative? This is negative. It's deductive as process, but is negative as function. Therefore, if you sometimes realize that you are negatively thinking, probably you're looking for the worst scenario. That's anxiety. That's different. When you look for something that, oh, the worst might happen. That's not the problem of your mind. Stop blaming your mind because it's not funny or it's not positive. Your mind, it's not supposed to be funny or positive. Your brain is meant to find the best solution that costs less energy, less resources, so you can get the results as soon as possible. That's what your mind is meant for. Does it make sense? I really hope it does. What does it mean to me? Ask yourself, what does it mean to me? When I try to be deductive, does it mean that I have to be positive or negative? Eliminating something is negative as a function. It might have a positive outcome, but do not be afraid of being negative as a function when needs to be. When you're cleaning the house, don't be afraid of it because your brain's not supposed to be so. Your soul is supposed to be at peace and happy. You're meant to feel the joy and alignment within your soul, and the mind helps you to find the best solutions. That's not mind's job. You can be happy right now if you, from within, allow yourself to be. Make an experiment. When you are stressed and you are really going through something, decide for 3 minutes just to be happy. Just to smile, and maybe you want to mumble a song or just want to look at the sky. Just for 3 minutes, you can be happy if you really want to. It's crazy. I know it sounds crazy. You might say, like, what the heck is this? Try it, and you'll see that in the midst of the storm, you can allow yourself to be happy for a couple of minutes. And then 3, and then 4, and then 5. So no matter what you're going through, you might be positively thinking, you might be negatively thinking. Doesn't matter. What's the problem? My soul is at peace anyway. I know my inner greatness. I know my inner strength. I know who I am. I'm not going to identify through the problems that I'm going through. I'm not going to identify myself as the thoughts that I'm processing or judgmentally assign a label of negative or destructive to something that my mind is supposed to do. It's a little bit complicated, as I say, but it is amazing if you start to make this difference. All right, so deductive. That's the first one. The second one is reductive. It's something similar to the negative function of a deductive type of process. Reductive is, let's make it simpler. Let me cut the bigger picture and smaller pictures so that I can start to resolve one at a time. One at a time. So let's be reductive. I can't achieve that in 3 months. I tried and I couldn't. Let me try to achieve 10% in a week. Let's make it simpler. Maybe it's too complex. Let's take away some complexities. So let's just make it simple. Now again, it's not about positive or negative. It can be very creative. It's like a creativity. How do I become more creative? Because you need the persuasion of your mind. Of course, but not without imagination. And imagination comes from unconsciousness, comes from your soul. That's your imagination. Your mind cannot be imagination. Your mind can be creative when the imagination of your soul, you allow yourself to dream and you inject that dream in your deductive process of your thinking so that you can start to take steps upon your inner desires. So Imagination is needed in order to be creative or even more creational, because the soul can be creational. The mind can be creative as function. We'll get to the function, there are four, and I have already named them: creative or destructive, positive or negative. These are functions. And it's not about the right or wrong. Sometimes it's negative and that's amazing, but not negative as feeling. I'm thinking negatively. No, it's into the negative. Since when -10 is worse than +10? Since when some numbers which are below 0 are worse than those which are above 0? That's not about right and wrong. Numbers are infinite. Since when one is worse than the other? Depends upon the outcome that you're looking for. So if you have a belief that tells you that whatever you're looking for in the future is crazy, then you're going to experience as negative whatever kind of process of thinking you are going through. Whether that's deductive or reductive, you are going to perceive it as negative because you're driven by a negative belief rather than the creational soul, the nature of your greatness of who you are within. And as long as you are blind to see the greatness within, as long as you lack the tools to connect with who you really are, as long as you doubt who you are, as long as you believe that you're not meant for greatness and you're not enough, you're not complete, and you have to improve yourself, the craziest thing that I might hear, to improve yourself, how can you improve yourself? You cannot improve yourself. You can let yourself to be more of who you are. You can develop a skill or another, an ability or another. You want to build a capability or another. How can you improve yourself? You have a soul, a mind, and you have everything you need. How can you improve yourself? That's not improvement. I know what you mean, and I agree with that. But if we look closer into the self-improvement, that doesn't really make sense to improve yourself. So I'm very curious about how can one improve oneself. Everything is meant for something. If you're a little bit more like this or a little bit more like that, you're a little bit more talkative like me, or you're more quiet, there for a reason. Do not try to improve something which is already perfect. Because your soul is perfect. Your thinking might be in a way or another, and you have to learn yourself. But not your soul, not your inner greatness, not your soul. Therefore, deductive is cutting a bigger picture in small pieces. These are the main two aspects of the nature of your thinking process. Is whether it is deductive, collecting things from different sources and parts and mixing them together, a belief, a conviction, a story, an emotional story, a dream, a failure, and you put them together, you map it, you come to a conclusion, you move forward. That's one. And another one, when you have a very complex understanding or concept and you want to chop it down, you want to chop it, map it, and do it. That's what the thinking can do. Therefore, again, do not expect your mind to be funny or positive, because the four functions, which are positive or negative, destructive or creative, let's do them quickly. Negative, and when you're expecting the negative and you act upon the negative belief, a negative belief, which is telling you that everything is going to hell, and you act upon and you believe it. And you believe it and you act not at your best, but you almost consciously act upon your lowest levels of consciousness, and you almost feel pity and sorry for you, and you keep confirming it. I'm just a nobody, so I will do it the way I'll do. It's a crime against our soul. It's a crime against the life to not act upon the best tools, best opportunities which are already available to myself now at the best of my capability. Whatever is there for you, if you reject it, if you complain about it, it's going to be taken away from you. That's how the universe works. If we complain about something, it's going to be taken away easily. So then we're going to be left with even less. So when we start to be negative is when we reject what we have, we devaluate what we have, and we act out of pity and shame, and we act upon low enthusiasm, low faith, low diligence, low accountability, because sorry, that just can't show to anyone that I can't. Because I know I'm not, so this is me. And I do it, but this is negative, and it's a crime against the soul. Positive. A positive thing is when you align your belief with the best outcome, and you do your best to not allow yourself to go in a low level of consciousness. The positive and negative is about consciousness. And if you want to get a look at the triangle of consciousness, which we go and we dive into much more detail in the self-discovery program, which you can get access right in the description below, there we can go from guilt and shame, we can move forward to anger, up and up and up and up, and greatness, creativity, oneness. So in order to rise above, you have to get out of those levels. And being positive means to be aware of at which level of consciousness am I acting from, or where am I standing when I try to solve or think or create or work and everything else? From which floor am I seeing the big or the small picture? That's the positive. Let's move to the next one. What is the creative? The creative aspect is building, and destructive is eliminating. Both are great for different times. And at both of these directions, your mind can be great. Do not tell to your brain that, look, this is bad, this is good. Tell to your brain from which level of consciousness do you want to act. What are the beliefs which needs to be used? You gotta tell to your brain what beliefs from the unconscious mind needs to be used. Because your mind might tell you, this is the first time we're doing it, we'll never get it, it's impossible, it's hard, but you tell to your brain, whoa, wait a second. That's a belief that I had because I didn't know that I have greatness within, I have wisdom and power within. I know my soul. Now, then I didn't know, and allow yourself to act and think and then act upon that old belief. Now, I'm not going to allow you to do that. Why? Because you know the rule number 2, which is the principle number 2. It's a rule. Not all thoughts deserve your attention. So I ask your name and I see that you come from an old belief, which is not part of my life anymore. So now I'm not going to allow you. I'm not even think about it for a second. I'm going to go to the new belief that I installed in my subconscious, and I'm going to act at my best according to this new belief. Do not fight it, because if you start to fight that belief, your brain is going to convince you the otherwise. It's going to find confirmations that you are an idiot. And it's going to tell you that, look, the old belief that you had was much better than this. That's what the mind can do. Therefore, if you know how to tame your mind, then you can align it positively or constructively to a new belief, because you know your soul. And if you want to know your soul, if you want to know all the tools required in order to connect with your inner self, I want to remind you to go in the description below. You can get access and go through the whole program, which is going to give you all the tools that you need. Now, when you are connecting your new belief with a new reality that you allow yourself to have in your imagination, because a quick note about imagination, if you refuse to imagine it, you refuse to want it. And if you refuse to want it, you refuse to believe that you deserve it. Refusing to imagine is refusing the creational, not the creative, Creative is just a function. It's a mere function of the direction of your mind. Am I destroying now something which needs to be destroyed sometimes, or am I creating something that hasn't been created before? Creative or destructive. This is not good or bad. Depends about the outcome or in the belief. What's the belief and what's the outcome that you're looking for? Now, the soul can be creational through imagination, through intuition. It can really not be creative as an adjective, but creational as essence, as nature. Your soul is creational. Your mind, it's not. Your mind can be creative from what the creational soul might show and reveal to your mind. Therefore, the positive and negative, creative and destructive are all great process functions of the mind. They don't need to be judged. They need to be used according to the belief and according to the dream, the outcome that you're looking for. Period. Do not allow your mind to take your soul role and start commanding you what is right and what is wrong, what you deserve and what you don't, because your mind don't have the answers for these kind of questions. Your mind can simply be deductive from what the soul says, from how much are the bills that needs to be paid, what are the tools that are available now, what are the inspirational ideas that I've got from my experience, what are the lessons from my failures. Let's map it together and let's be deductive as a nature of thinking. So in that moment, you're deductive. And while you're deductive, you can be positive, you can be negative, you can be creative, you can be destructive. And none of these four are one better than the other. Deductive or reductive. There is something very complex and you're simplifying. So I don't think I have to add more explanation here. The key to this whole process, the key to this all three implies the fact that one will start, if not already, to know themselves within. And that's not your mind. Because your mind, your thoughts are not real. They're a mix of things through the deductive or are zoomed in through the reductive process. That's it. What you put in your mind, that's what you're gonna get out. What is boiling in the bowl soup of your mind, that's what you're gonna be served on the table of life. What you put in, that's what you get out. It processes in a way or another. And if your mind is not aware of the source of the ignition process of thinking, then it goes wild. And it starts to go against you, and it might become destructive for your inner self. And that's not the mind. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, let's start to become aware of the powers which are within our soul. And let's start to watch and see how your mind works. Let's judge it less, but let's assign the tasks which are meant to be solved by your mind, and the tasks, the directions, the dreams, the outcomes, the worthiness, the values, the heights of consciousness, which are written in your soul rather than trusting your mind. So all I wish for you, that you start to take care of your mind so it doesn't become destructive and it doesn't start to turn up against you. That's all I wish for you. If this was useful for you, then leave a comment in the section below. This would be a blessing for my project, for Explore Self MBA Mindset Business Academy, Wisdom and Wealth for Business and Life. My name is Alexander Kojakar, and I thank you for your time, and I wish you all the best. And we'll see each other in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.